the FBI may have known about the mass shooters.
What would you take? Safety or freedom? A shocking amount have said safety.
I believe it's my duty to be ready to fight for freedom. What is happening, all you peaceful warriors out there? Rainy Day Bro, back at it again. And today, you might notice we have a little bit of a different setup. I have Charlie here, who is my first cousin, like a little brother to me. And we're going to be talking today about his journey into the firearms community, which I had a little part to do with, maybe a big part.
Pretty big part, yeah.
So, let's just talk about that now.
How's that hanging?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I've always seen the room on YouTube, and I'm excited to be in here.
Definitely not as cool as it looks in person. So.
It's even cooler. Don't let them know. It's pretty fucking cool.
All right, so let's just start with, let's talk about your journey a little bit, because I think you had the same journey as me in a lot of ways, and probably a lot of people. I was in college, and let me just preface this by saying, because I don't know if I've ever said this to you guys, I was in college, University of Akron, and I was getting blue pilled, didn't even realize it. Grew up in Ohio, first generation American. Never realized that I was getting blue pilled in college until I moved to Alabama for work.
Yeah.
And then I started hearing kind of the other side of the story that I was missing on all of my news feeds, all my social media feeds, as far as like Trump being a terrible president, Trump being the worst thing in the world, and they kind of left out all the other parts of the speeches. They kind of cherry picked things, and I was studying abroad in Europe, which is also very liberal, and so I was hearing all this liberal information, and then I moved to Alabama and I started hearing the other side of the story, and I was just kind of like, oh shit, like this one side is only giving me half the story, while the other side's still kind of serving their own purpose with their story, but I'm kind of hearing the other half now, and I kind of realized that neither side is really good, but also like I was being lied to I was being tricked into thinking the way I was thinking, and I really started to, I guess you can call it, get red pilled in Alabama. I also started working and paying taxes, which is a big changing moment for a lot of people.
That'll get you.
Yeah, like not paying bills to paying bills and seeing how much money the federal government takes out of your paycheck. And then I moved to Texas, and then I kind of opened Pandora's box, built my first AR-15, and then started realizing, well, hey, why does the government want to disarm you? I was always pro-gun, but I was like, maybe universal background checks isn't such a bad idea. I was like, maybe we could do some more common sense gun measures. And then the more I learned, the more I researched, the more I realized that it's just all about control. It's not about protecting you. And I don't want to influence what you're going to say, but I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit. But that was my own journey. And I was like, you know what? No, fuck that. Like, you're not taking any more gun rights away. As I said, I'm first generation American. I have family overseas. And that family does not have anywhere near the same opportunities that we have, because I was born with a golden passport being American. So God bless America. I fucking feel so grateful to be an American every day, especially having that as a reference point.
Amen.
So that's kind of my journey. It's just like, holy shit, like I was getting fed all this information from one side of the fence, and I was kind of just like, whatever, I'm not really into politics. And then I started to just pay attention more and more, and I was like, holy fuck, I'm getting fed this, like it's being curated for me.
Yeah, the government, and if I might
go ahead. So that's my journey. There you go.
Yeah, mine is, I think similar, but in my view, it's like the government either way has an agenda. Whether you're left, you're right, they tell a story. If you're left, you listen to their story and you believe it. If you're right, you listen to their story and you believe it. And for me, like the Great Equalizer is firearms. And it's up to nobody in the government for your own safety and the safety of your family, your loved ones, your things, your household, and the integrity of your own, ability to have those freedoms, the rest of the Bill of Rights and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Then having a gun. And for me, it was, I never really grew up around guns. I knew some folks that had them. I wasn't necessarily in either of our cultures. No. Maybe one cousin that, had firearms, but never went to the range, never went hunting. No. And so it wasn't really until I got out of college, had somebody in my life that I would be willing to die for, had things that I wanted to protect, and also kind of the degradation of society, or the awakening, I'd like to say, of people realizing that, hey, our government is making choices that doesn't really benefit the people. Why would they be making those choices? Oh, because they're following the money. And so every decision that they make isn't based on whether it's going to benefit you or I or the people watching this, wherever they may be. It's going to benefit their pocketbooks, their donors, the agendas and the stories that they tell us. And so for me, I personally just don't like people telling me what to do. And I want to be able to protect myself. And so from Colorado, here obviously in Texas today, but they looked at passing an assault weapons ban. And to me, we talk about common sense gun laws. most of deaths occur from handguns.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those things of like, okay, assault weapons because they're or assault rifles, Armalite rifles. We got to get rid of these things. And for me, it was, well, I don't want somebody to tell me I can't have this.
Yeah.
And, maybe that's a personality flaw, but that's what got me into it. And obviously started that conversation with you about, hey, what does it look like? What's the responsibility? Because that was another thing that personally I was worried about. Like, am I ready as a person to have the responsibility? Because they're awesome, they're fun.
Yeah.
But they're also responsibility.
Yeah.
Something you got to take care of.
Totally. And let's take a step back because you're kind of, and I love that you're just getting right into it, but I want to just kind of dissect a little bit what you were saying because you kind of dove right into the way you feel now.
Sure.
And I want to go take a step back and kind of talk about the way you felt before because I was discussing with you kind of how I felt before, and I'll second what you said. My parents and my father was never, I don't want to say he was ever anti-gun. I don't know what his position was early on in my life. Now he's definitely not anti-gun. He's totally pro me having whatever I need to protect myself.
Yeah.
He still doesn't have firearms in his house. That's his personal choice. And I think him fleeing the war in Lebanon kind of just wanted to be away because he was being recruited by militias in Lebanon. He's like, I'm not going to die for your fucking cause. Like, I'm not going to go out there in the streets and shoot my friends over some bullshit cause that you've decided.
I'm not going to fight your war.
Exactly. And that's how a lot of people feel today. And that's why I feel like enlistment in the armed forces in America is so fucking low because I feel the same way as you feel, I think, and many people our age feel. I'm 30 years old. Is like, I'm not going to go fucking fight for your war to earn you guys money to fight these proxy wars. And like, you got these wars that we're participating in, sending money to. Don't want to get into all that. But the whole point is like, you kind of dove right into the fact that, I didn't have a firearm until I went to college and I bought my first gun. Yeah. Obviously, we have our one cousin who's always been the gun guy. Yeah. And he was a good influence on us growing up, teaching us responsibility and whatnot. But we never got to go hunting. We never got to go to the range with our parents. And so once we became adults, we're like, oh fuck, like we have things to lose. We have things to But again, I came from that mindset of, oh, well, university background checks sounds, what's the harm in that,
Sure.
And I was very naive. I just didn't know, and I was kind of repeating the party lines, so to speak. So let's take a step back, because you called me, and I think over the course of several years, you and I were talking, and I kind of was, I think, like a step or two ahead of you on like the discovery of how much bullshit there was in the gun control. In the gun control realm, because like you said, like, why don't you want me to have this tool? These tools have never harmed anybody. These tools are just what they are. They're tools, and they can be used as weapons of war. That's not sugarcoated. They're not sporting rifles. They are for protecting freedom from whoever wants to take that, whether it's a domestic or a foreign threat, or and it starts on a micro scale. It starts with defending your family, your friends, your neighborhood, then your county, your state, and then it gets bigger and bigger, obviously, than your country. Yeah. And just the whole goal is to protect freedom. And first of all, obviously, the freedom of my family, my friends, but then it extends to any innocent life that's out there. Because, as peaceful warriors, as all you guys kind of feel, I feel like all my viewers kind of feel the same way. Peace, love, and violence. That's, if I had to start a group, if anyone want to get behind me, that would be it. Like the hippie warriors. Peace and love first, because I truly believe in peace and love and kindness and the works of Jesus Christ, and turn the other cheek. I know it's not easy. I'm trying to practice it every day. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm far from it. But that is kind of what I'm working towards, is the peace and love, always offering that peace and love first. But sometimes you need violence, because violence exists in the world. Evil exists in the world. And if they're coming to enact that violence on you and to kill you or take your freedom away, put you in a cage, they might as well kill you. Then you need to have that violence. You need to know how to execute that violence like a scalpel, and be trained, and not hurt yourself or hurt others around you because you don't know what the fuck you're doing, for lack of a better word. But I don't know how we divulged to that, but we were talking. Yeah. So what was your mindset before we started talking? Yeah, like what was the most extreme on the other end to what you would be considered now, which in where you live is considered extreme the way you feel. Sure. Right?
Yeah, like where I live now, they have magazine capacity limits, which is one of those common sense gun laws, but it's like 15 bullets is gonna kill the same way 30 is. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So I guess to backtrack, where was I at before I went on this journey? I think where I was at is I just didn't really think about guns all that much. I didn't have them. I didn't want them. I didn't
have a strong opinion.
I didn't have a strong opinion. I had a traumatic experience in college with a neighbor of mine who had pulled a gun on me and was intoxicated. And that was the first moment, I think, that kind of sparked my journey into getting into guns. And in a weird way, right? Like, this thing had happened to me, and I had no repercussion. It was like, talked him down, got into my apartment, locked the door, ran to my room and hid, and waited for the SWAT team to come.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was one of those moments where I was kind of like, wow, this guy was intoxicated. He had a firearm. You know, if he would have tripped, slipped, and pulled the trigger, I might not be here today. And so, you know, that is then elevated when you have a loved one in your life, when you start bringing kids into your life, when it's not just yourself, and you have things bigger than yourself that you're striving towards. And so
you had this traumatic experience. This guy pulled a gun on you, and you realized right then how helpless you were. Like,
incredibly
this guy,
helpless. There's not. If you wanted to kick my door down, he could have easily done that. It was a shitty apartment door.
He could have kicked right through
plywood. He kick right through it, and he did pound on it, and it was like, by the time the cops got in there, it could have gone very, very much
differently
worse. Yeah. And you know, I hope that person gets the help that he needs. I know he was suffering from something, and but it was one of those. Yeah, it was one of those moments where you realize your own mortality.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, we all have been young before.
Yeah.
Some people are still young and they think they're invincible, and old people say that to young people, thinking they're gonna get through to them, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about
until you experience it yourself.
Until you experience it yourself, or until you have something that you don't want to lose.
So that kickstarted you on the journey.
That kickstarted the journey to caring.
To thinking about your own protection.
Yeah.
Being like, okay, I don't want to feel that helpless ever again.
Yeah.
And I want to be in control of my own destiny.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
And so then what was the next step in like that progression? We started talking.
I know we started talking. Yeah. It was, well, what's the right thing? Like, what's the right tool to use? And I think you had a lot of really good metaphors, because for me, it was like, you know, I never just got like, oh, it's a tool. It's like a fishing rod, right?
Yeah.
You don't just have your fishing rod all the time, but if you need it, if you're hungry and all you have is a fishing rod, you're in a much better position
than not having
that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I view it as insurance. I view it as my own kind of anonymity is maybe the wrong word for it, but I have control over my own life, my own destiny. If I do need something like that, I have the ability to. Whereas, you know, once they take your gun, or they change a law, or the shit hits the fan, and you're trying to get, it's not going to work out for you. You're already screwed.
Even if you get your hands on it, if you don't train with it, then it's useless.
If you don't know what you're doing, 100%.
You don't know how to reload, clear malfunction, basic shit.
Yeah.
If you don't know what your dope is, then you're not going to be able to make a shot at distance. But and we're still working on you. I'm still working on you to get you to like be convinced of like carrying every day. That's not something you can see yourself doing right now. Because you know I carry every single day.
I know. So the thing I struggle with, I think, a little is the thought of having that on my person every day, and how many things it would change, like how I would do things differently. I'd have to change a lot of things
to do it responsibly.
Yeah.
You can't just go out and you can't like go after work and go get drinks right away.
Exactly.
Like you can't just be as willy-nilly with what your day is going to be like.
100%.
You can't just pass out, you know, whatever. I'm going to keep referring to alcohol because, you know, that's a very social thing. Like, you want to go out with drinks with your friends, you can't really do that. Yeah. I mean, you can't.
Well, in Colorado, you can't carry if you're intoxicated.
So the laws are different in different states, so make sure you check your own local laws. But I think that in some states, I don't know about Texas, I don't drink if I'm carrying at all. But in some states, you can carry your gun if you're below the legal limit to drive. You're still able to legally conceal your firearm, I believe. So, again, don't quote me on this. It's not legal advice. But, it does change the way you look at the world. And our other cousin, who's pretty staunchly anti-gun, had brought up this thing, you know, when I brought up the fact that I carry everywhere, he brought up something to me that I thought was interesting, and it kind of had the opposite effect on me, because he said, well, when you're carrying a gun everywhere and you're the hammer, does everything not look like a nail? You know, and I think that he was kind of more focusing, like a lot of anti-gunners do, on the crazy people in society that they're kind of scared of acquiring a gun.
Yeah.
Which they always forget, like, criminals are going to do criminal shit. It's against the law to murder. Like, if you're willing to murder, you're going to be willing to break a gun law to get a gun to do that. But regardless, he kind of brought that up, and I've thought about that a lot. I'm like, if I have my gun on me all the time, that makes me a hammer. Does everything look like a nail? Because I have the power of God. I have the power to give or take life, you know, by carrying my gun everywhere, if you want to put it that way. And it's like, no, it does the complete opposite to me. Because when I was younger in high school, you know, we all had, you know, you're with your buddies, you're football guys, and, you know, people talk shit at the bar, you talk shit back. Now if somebody talks shit to me, I am the most unaggressive, de-escalating person, because this only ends one of two ways. If they're talking shit to me or in a road rage situation, it ends one of two ways. I have my gun on me, I'm not throwing hands. Like that one quote, I forget what song it is. I believe Saint Juan or Saint Juan maybe. He's like, I don't want to be the one to promote guns, but I don't fight now. I thought that was a funny line because I'm not throwing hands. I'm not gonna fist fight somebody when I have my gun on me. I'm gonna get out of that situation.
De-escalate.
I'm gonna de-escalate before it even gets to that
Yeah.
point. Call me whatever you want, as long as you don't back me in a corner or threaten the life of somebody I love. I'm getting out of there. Like, there's nothing that can make you want me to get in a fight with you, altercation, because it's gonna end with the firearm. Because I'm not throwing hands. Like, I'm not gonna get knocked out or knock somebody out. Yeah, like this is not. So it was the complete opposite effect, and I thought that was really interesting because when from the anti-gun perspective of my other cousin, he was like, dude, you're the hammer, everything looks like a nail, you're just going to be aggressive and being this bully everywhere you go. But it actually does the opposite thing. It makes me more responsible. It makes me more calm because I know exactly how it's going to end.
Much more measured.
If I allow it to. Exactly. It's like, this is going to end with me in cuffs and then fighting for my life about whether or not that was a justifiable self-defense situation. And I don't want to be anywhere near that. I got too much stuff to lose.
And that's why I think my journey's been long. Like, we've been talking for years about this.
4 years, I feel like.
I'm somebody who I want to be educated, and I don't have any.
You want to do it right.
I want to do it right. I want to be responsible. I'm not rushing into this.
Yeah.
I'm reading the materials online. I'm taking the courses that I feel like I need to take. Recently, I let you know I took a concealed carry course that focused on the laws specific to Colorado.
Yeah.
That was incredibly eye-opening, and it gave me the confidence to feel like I could be a responsible gun owner because I took the time to be educated. And
I think a lot of anti-gun people are scared of the opposite of you, which is like the guy who's just fucking whatever, got given a pistol by his uncle, who gets drunk all the time, who uses it as a bully or a threatening tactic in traffic. And that is the very small minority. And you're never going to get rid of all those folks, but why punish the law-abiding people? And I hate using the word law-abiding because laws, the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. The Constitution is absolute. It requires full auto. It requires no restrictions on SBRs. It requires no restrictions on suppressors, which we have all that bullshit now because all these laws were passed in the 30s and the 80s. All bullshit. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. That's my true belief. Yeah. And some people call me an extremist for that. But again, I am a loving, kind person. And why are you making it harder for me to defend myself and all those innocent people around me that depend on me for protection because of a few bad apples? And like you said, it's not because they care about you. It's because they want you to be easier to control.
Compliant.
If and when they decide to put their foot on your neck.
Yeah.
And that's the matter. That's my true belief, and I think that's the vast majority of my viewers would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not just trying to talk into an echo chamber here. In the future, if we continue, if you guys like these videos, I may bring in some more not as pro-gun people as Charlie here, but even yourself, like I said, you didn't start as really pro. You kind of started as anti-gun, I would say, right?
I mean, so I think we both come from the same position, but maybe have some differences along the line. So I know you're very pro 2A. Mine is 1A. Like, the freedom of speech is the most important thing for me.
Yeah.
And I now view guns as a tool to protect that, as we've seen on, some websites where you upload videos and people watch those videos, what they can do to those folks and demonetization and not giving a platform and silencing the voices very systemically.
Just because they disagree.
Because
it's hurting their bottom line.
It goes against their narrative. Everyone's telling a story. And if you mute the ones that are trying to tell you a story and only feed them the other ones, then that's inherently biasing a population with information. And we've seen it in written news, we've seen it in legacy media, we've seen it on the internet, podcasts, whatever media you want to name. This is happening, and that's extreme. That's extreme.
And it's happening in America, which is because it's happening in Canada too. I don't know if you've seen that. I've seen that podcast in Canada. They're pretty much hiding behind diversity and saying that you have to be an indigenous podcaster. Like a certain percentage of the podcasts have to be of indigenous backgrounds.
Yeah,
pretty much a way of them to silence who they don't, like the Jordan Petersons or whoever. I'm not like really deep into that.
That's crazy.
So
I did not know that.
This is secondhand information. Yeah. I didn't do the research myself, so full disclosure there. But I agree. I think the Second Amendment, Dave Chappelle put it really eloquently. He goes, the First Amendment is the most important amendment, and that's why it's first. Yeah. But the Second Amendment's there just in case the first one doesn't work out. Yeah. And that's a Dave Chappelle, and I love Chappelle. And he,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and like
that's the best way you could put it.
So many people want to give up their freedoms and give up, not even if they're not exercising it. Let me finish this one thought before I get back into this one. As far as duty, remind me to forget it's your duty as an American to own guns. Yeah. But I believe that so many people are willing to give up their freedom for the illusion of safety. And we've been tricked into doing that from 9/11 with the Patriot Act, and Snowden kind of came out and blew that whole spot up and told everybody what was going on, and now look at him, he's in fucking Russia or wherever the fuck he is. And same thing with the WikiLeaks dude, Julian Assange. Same thing with all these whistleblowers who there's supposed to be all these protections for under the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, which is touted as the biggest. All the left wing media used to be all about freedom of speech, and so anyways, that has been blown up, and these people are willing to give up their freedom for the illusion of safety. And those people, I think the quote is, I forget who it was, but those people who are willing to do that neither deserve freedom nor safety.
Yeah.
And I believe, as an American, being first generation Americans, like our family came over from Lebanon, I believe that we have a distinct advantage in seeing how blessed we are to be Americans. Yeah, because we've been back to Lebanon, we've been to the old country, we see how they live. We see what's going on right now overseas. Yeah. And the government of Lebanon has no fucking control over the extremist groups in Lebanon. So there's going to be mass casualties of civilians, potentially our own families, which really frustrates us because it's our tax dollars funding those rockets and missiles that are going to be dropped on Lebanon. And without getting too much into that, because you need a PhD to study the fucking history of the Middle East.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not even scratching the surface with my knowledge of the history there. But regardless of that situation, that perspective, seeing that and having done the travel I did, studying abroad and going all over the world, I got to really see, even in those developed countries like Germany, like Italy, and you see what's happening in Canada, like, you're not truly a free person. No. You're not really free because you don't have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the one thing that separates America from the rest of the world. The First and the Second.
100%.
But the Second Amendment particularly because that is the one that protects the rest of those rights and makes the government think twice. Like, the whole, you need an F-15 to fight the government. Well, tell that to the Taliban who's fighting with 30, 40-year-old AKs and flip-flops. And that's no slight on anyone who fought in Afghanistan. It was a terrible withdrawal. It was an embarrassment. The administration that was the worst. I feel bad for anyone who was over there, who was injured or who lost friends. That was a terrible situation. I think all of America is like just embarrassed by how the administration handled that. Yeah. It was terrible. But again, you don't need F-15s. You don't need fucking nukes to do that.
Just resisting. And I think it goes back to the safety versus freedom. Yeah. I just want to touch on that real quick because I've asked friends, like, people that I love, people that I know, what would you take, safety or freedom? And a shocking amount have said safety. Yeah. And to me, what I see that's so disheartening and why I think, now getting into guns, the gun culture, being responsible with it, and kind of like you hit on duty. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's my duty, is to protect these rights that so many people are just willingly giving away. Like
100%.
When we look at the Twitter files and folks say, well, that's not that important, and it was disproven, and we start cherry picking things that serve our stories, serve our narratives from the people that we read and the people that we listen to, because nobody likes to be wrong. Yeah, nobody likes to be wrong. Us included, right? Yeah, myself included. And so what that makes me feel like I have a responsibility to be ready in the event that shit hits the fan, in the event that I need to protect myself or my family. Mm-hmm. Because I see so many people willingly self-censoring, willingly going in half-educated and saying, this makes a lot of sense. This is for the safety and the greater good. Yeah. Well, the bad guys are still going to have guns.
Yeah, they're still going to.
Your 15-round magazine is not going to save lives, and it's just not.
It takes me like a second and a half max to do a mag drop and change a mag. It's incredibly fast.
I remember watching this. I don't even remember who it was, but it was like I think it was Jordan Peterson. He's like, if they want to take your rights, they're not going to do it all at once. Skip it. They're going to move an inch. They're going to move an inch, and then you're going to say, "What the heck? Don't take those rights." And then you're going to come back, and then you're going to move an inch, and in 10 years you'll look back and be like, "How the heck did we get all the way here from there?" Yeah. And they've slowly and calculated. Taking it away. And
they're patient. They're patient with it. And you have to be, because if they tried to come and confiscate guns tomorrow, there'd be an all-out fucking war. I know.
The shit would hit.
The quote here in Texas is, come and take it. Yeah, exactly. So that would never happen, at least right now. I say it would never happen. They're slowly trying to do it, and they're attacking it in other ways. They're attacking ammo manufacturers. They're attacking gun manufacturers by removing their protection from being sued by victims of mass shootings and whatnot, which a lot of them are very sketchy. And if you look into them, there may be some. Yeah. The FBI may have known about the mass shooters. Again, secondhand information. I'm not like digging into. I have a life. Yeah, I have a life. I don't like dig into this research myself, but I heard it from trusted sources. But again, do your own research, guys. What I was trying to get at was, 100%. I believe that you sit here in this country, you enjoy these freedoms, you enjoy everything this country has to offer, all the opportunities, even though it's gone to shit in a lot of ways. It's still the best out there.
Yeah.
It's still the best by far. But the cards are definitely pinned against you being in the middle class or being in the lower class.
Yeah, of course.
The gap between the super wealthy is growing, and my ADHD is kicking in again. I'm going in a different direction. But it is your duty as an American, and this is my belief as a first-generation American. I sit here, I enjoy all these freedoms, I enjoy the beautiful country that we live in and everything that comes with it. I believe it's my duty to be ready to fight for freedom if the need arises. And that does not mean, to me, it does not mean joining the armed forces, because, again, I believe a lot of the leadership, and this is just from speaking to my friends who are in the armed forces and just seeing everything that's going on in the world right now, does not mean we're fighting for the U.S. armed forces. It just means that we as American citizens are the greatest militia the world's ever seen.
Yeah.
And you need to be ready and do your part. Be an asset. Don't be a liability. Exactly.
And I wanted to hit back on the F-16 thing, and I think about that quote often, and people are like, you're not going to go against the government, you're not going to win, and it's like, do you know how bad of a look it would be for the United States government to try to kill all of its people?
Yeah, no,
you got nobody left to rule.
No one's going to rule, exactly.
There's no one left to rule,
that
and
would
so
never happen.
It's a means of not peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Like it's once that gets past there, and like you said, it's peace, it's love, but then it's having the tools, the know-how, the responsibility to be able to protect yourself.
Just having the Second Amendment and having people who are trained, having a citizenry who knows what they're doing is a huge deterrent. It's already. I mean, 100%. Who knows what would have happened if the Second Amendment wasn't in place
during the pandemic?
During the pandemic, they
took your rights.
They took a lot. They wanted to test to see how much you would take. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I took a lot more than I'm willing to be happy admitting I did. I mean, I was like, you know what? What's the big deal, man? I'll sit at home, but it got ridiculous, got out of hand, and now they're still pushing. I mean, they can't silence all this information with the internet. No. They can't silence it all.
But you still see people that are like,
they're trying
still on the bandwagon of, and I've had folks when I say, listen, if they do this again, I'm not complying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but that year was just,
it was hell.
It was bad. And it affected kids that were in school. Now they're behind. They can't read. It affected the mental health of so many folks. Mm-hmm. For the few that it did affect, and for those who do have immunocompromised folks that could die or have died from it, like, absolutely sympathize with that. And I think what I'm trying to say is there's a common sense middle ground that I think probably 80% of the population would agree.
The majority, yeah.
We don't like mass shootings. No, right? Like, that's an awful thing to have happen.
Yeah, well, what's hilarious is when an anti-gunner, when I put my stance out there and I said, look, I am an absolute Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I'm an absolutist on the Second Amendment.
Absolutely, we talked about this.
Yeah, I believe that it says what it means and it means what it says, and there's no negotiating there. Like, we shouldn't have to have a fucking special tax, an extortion tax that we pay to buy an SBR and have to wait 9 months. And same thing for a suppressor. I think full auto should be sold same day, right on the spot, by any gun shop that wants to sell it. I believe that we have way too many gun laws being put in the way for regular gun owners to get their firearms, because there's criminals. We see them all the time. I mean, they're fucking so brazen. They're putting videos of themselves online with illegal machine guns. And we're talking like 14-year-old kids, and you know what city. We've all seen those videos. The little wish switches and shit. That would land anybody who, like myself, or who lives in the burbs. The ATF's not afraid to show up in the suburbs, but they're not showing up in this inner cities because they know they're going to fucking face gunfire. Exactly. So they're not afraid to show up to your house or to my house and intimidate us and threaten us with legal action, and then your tax dollars are paying for their, you got to pay for your own legal defense. Meanwhile, they have the federal government's massive debt. They don't even have money. They got this.
I'll take it further. I just think tax is theft.
Yeah.
If the government was a person doing a day job, they'd be fired.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, coming from living in Colorado.
Yeah.
Like, they've done a poor job, and I can look around the country and the places that I visited and confidently say something very similar. I will say Texas is one of the nicer places that I visited. But you look at your paycheck, we see where that money is going, and then it's going overseas instead of helping the people that are here that are disenfranchised.
Yeah.
It's going to places and to people and to companies and corporations with ulterior motives that have your local politician in their pocketbook that is only interested in running for re-election until they turn 90 and can't spit out a sentence and then finally step down and
they literally die.
Yeah,
Dianne
out of life.
Dianne Feinstein, or was it Dianne Feinstein?
Yeah. Feinstein.
Yeah, Feinstein.
Feinstein,
She voted on a bill like the day she died. I think.
Yeah, the day before.
Literally, yeah.
Her fadeaway jumper.
This last
Swish.
All right, now this is running a little longer than I wanted to, so let's kind of summarize and wrap it up. Damn, what was that? I had a fucking thought and I lost it. Yeah, we were talking about ATF, the switches. Yeah,
duty.
Yeah, your duty, and it was kind of. I think where I lost it was that we were talking about how they're making it harder for law-abiding people
to get guns.
Yeah, I had a thought, man, to wrap it up, but I lost it. So I guess we'll just. Anything you want to say before the end?
No, I would. I'd just like to say, like, I think we all have more in common than we have different.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think that is a value that is frankly undervalued because people have such a tribe mentality nowadays. They want to be on a team. They want to root for their team, and when their team loses, they're unhappy. And whether you're pro-Trump, pro-Biden, pro-RFK, pro whoever it is, okay, that's running for your local election, just know they're probably all bought and paid for.
Yeah.
and you should be able to keep yourself safe, make money, live a life outside of that sphere, and be able to talk. Because I think like this dialogue, I know we don't agree.
That was what I was going to say.
I know we don't agree on everything, especially when it comes to guns. There's some things that I think could be changed. Maybe you think you're an absolute... Okay, so I think there should be something done.
Before I forget.
Okay.
Hold your thought. My whole thing I was going to say was... fuck, I forgot it again. What were you just saying a second ago? What are you talking about? Like gun laws. Everyone's got more. These conversations. That was it.
These conversations.
So
what I
wanted to say was, like, everyone's like throws their arms up and feels like they can't do anything to change the overall momentum of the way the world's going, and I disagree 100%. I think that, I feel the whole reason I started this channel was, number one, to fund my gun addiction and to help pay for all the things that to help pay for the addiction that I have to buying awesome gear, because the gear doesn't matter, it's all about training. But the other thing was to start the conversation and to show people that, I'm not a staunch, I'm not a straight up conservative. Like, I have a lot of very socially, like on immigration, I'm a family of an immigrant. Like, I believe my cousins from Lebanon should be able to get a visa to come over here. Like, they couldn't even come to my wedding. And I have a lot of family over there. For an example, I don't think there should be this crazy lottery for getting citizenship. Especially when you see what's going on in Texas here in the southern border and the amount of illegal immigrants pouring into this country. And I got first cousins who have multiple master's degrees, are highly educated, amazing people, better than me, and they can't even come over to see my wedding and celebrate my wedding with me because they're from Lebanon, and that's bullshit to me. My own sister's husband couldn't even come over here after they were married for like almost a year and a half. They were fucking with him to get him into this country after he was married to an American citizen. So that's just one example of how I have a lot of more liberal, the old school liberal, like 2008 liberal opinions on a lot of things that are staunchly political. And so I started this channel to kind of open that conversation, open that dialogue, that it doesn't matter, like Charlie said, it doesn't matter like what side you lean towards. You probably have a lot more in common with the person you're arguing with. And I said it a lot in my earlier videos, like, hey, bring somebody else into the community. That's the whole point of this channel. And that's what I got to do with Charlie. Love you for that, man. That was awesome.
For having me on.
Awesome opportunity to do that.
Come true, absolutely.
And maybe another day, another time, we can kind of dive in more into the differences about how we feel about
like our differences, our similarities. Love to talk through that with you.
Yeah, we could talk about it another day. This video's already going pretty long, so with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. If you like this content, like, comment, and subscribe. You gonna say something?
I was just saying, range day, bro.
All right, love you, man.
Love you too, cuz.
All right, cool.